them is the key to school success. We searched the nation to find and study schools where teachers are trusted, and our findings are now published in this book. It's Trusting Teachers with School Success, What Happens When Teachers Call the Shots. As Adam said, I'm Kim Ferris-Berg. I'm an independent consultant. For this project, I worked as a senior associate with Education Evolving. And if you want to contact me after today, I welcome it. I'm at Farris-Berg. That's my Twitter handle. Or you can get me at kim@educationevolving.org. And I also want to invite you to a web community supporting teachers who call the shots. It's at www.trustingteachers.org. This is a place where teachers who are already calling the shots or who are thinking about calling the shots are coming. There's some 70 of them there, and also people who support them there, such as union leaders and superintendents or school board members. And they're all talking about how things already work, or people who are investigating come and say, where should I start? And it's a good place to get those kind of questions out and answered. So we've all seen headlines like these. Today's most dominant ideas in education policy tend to characterize school quality as a function of how well we're doing at controlling teachers. We are attempting to manage school quality from the top down by telling teachers what to do and how to do it. You guys all gave examples of this morning. Those in power are standardizing curricula. They're requiring adherence to pacing guides. They're tightening licensure requirements, offering merit pay, tying school and teacher evaluations to singular measures of student performance. The idea seems to be that if we can just get tough with teachers and eliminate any variance in the experience for students, that all will be well with K-12 schools. Now we've seen these headlines too. Teachers are resisting the get tough strategy. And those who are advancing the get tough strategy have at times characterized teachers' resistance as a sign of their lack of willingness to accept accountability. Now my colleagues and I found something very different. We found that teachers are not opposed to the idea of accepting accountability. They are opposed to the idea of accepting accountability for the results of decisions which they do not and cannot make. So we sought out to investigate what might happen if policymakers and educators started advancing a second strategy running alongside this now predominant get tough strategy. And the second strategy would combine any expectations for accountability with real authority for the teachers who seek it. So we have learned that amidst all the ramping up of control, some teachers and administrators and policymakers are quietly advancing an innovative design alternative for the structuring and managing of schools. In all of these cases, all these pin drops up there, teachers have asked for and received authority to collectively, as a group in their school, make the decisions influencing whole school success. So today there are more than 50 K-12 public schools run by teacher groups with this authority. Arrangements for teacher autonomy have appeared in district and chartered schools. Some have union-affiliated teachers and others do not. There are schools with teacher autonomy in urban and rural and suburban environments. They're all across the US, and they're serving students from preschool all the way to age 21. Now, my colleagues and I studied the cultures and designs in 11 of these schools, and with all the demographics I just described, and here's a quick summary of our findings. Teachers in these schools told us over and over again that the autonomy heightens their sense of accountability to their colleagues and their students and their schools. And the mix of autonomy and accountability mobilizes their energy toward change and improvement. Now, before I get into the specifics about what happens when teachers call the shots, it's important to share with you how we defined autonomy for this book. Because teacher autonomy has come to be associated with teachers having authority in their classroom. And that's often to implement curriculum that someone else chose. That's not what we're talking about. And the words teacher-led school, that's often affiliated with things like PLCs, or professional learning communities, or site-based management. And I'm not poo-pooing those ideas. I think those are great ideas, they're advancements forward. They acknowledge teachers' input in their classroom is important. They acknowledge teachers' input is important at the school level. They acknowledge teachers' partial authority in their classroom is important. But they also sort of fail to contemplate that any changes teachers want to make might be outside the conventional concept of school. So with all this talk about autonomy, I just want to make it really clear. Autonomy is not by itself a pathway to high performance. It's what is put into the autonomy, arrangement, how that autonomy is used. That is what is the pathway to high performance. So this is putting that autonomy in the hands of teachers, and I'll tell you soon what they do with that. This brings me to the essential questions of our study. So the essential questions were, what would teachers do if they had the autonomy, not just to make classroom decisions, but to collectively, with their colleagues, make the decisions influencing whole school success? And can we trust autonomous teachers to make good decisions? So reporting what teachers do and that's it, that would have been interesting. But how would we know if teachers' decisions have the potential to achieve superior results? How would we know if their decisions were worthy of our trust? So we decided, can I get a little water? Thank you. That a reasonable proxy for whether a school has the potential to achieve superior results ought to be associated with characteristics of high-performing organizations. Now, we completed a literature review. We identified 9 characteristics of high-performing organizations, and then we used our detailed findings, thank you, to develop survey and interview instruments that would examine whether teachers' approaches and behaviors emulated these characteristics. If you want to know more about the logic and reasons why we made that decision, please get the book. It's described in detail in there. And I don't have a lot of time today to go over all of that. I want to get to discussion. But these are the 9 characteristics. So accept ownership, innovate, share purpose, collaborate, lead effectively, function as learners, avoid insularity, be open to ideas from the outside, motivate, and assess performance. Now, the book reports survey findings which show that while there are successes and struggles, teachers who call the shots overwhelmingly do cultivate and maintain cultures with these characteristics. We sought to survey all the teachers in all the 11 schools. We got a 71% response rate. And in 7 of the 9 areas, more than 90% of teachers reported that their schools were emulating those characteristics. In 2 of them, avoid insularity and assess performance, the numbers were more in the 80 to 90% range. Now, I want to highlight that first one, accept ownership, because time and time again in our interviews, teachers who called the shots said that their collective autonomy plus their sense of accountability for school success is what drives all of their decision making. And this is something really important to keep in mind as I quickly go through the 8 practices that we found these teachers embrace, which are indicative of the cultural characteristics of high-performing organizations. Now, I'm going to give you a very simplified version of these findings. And there's many stories and dynamics and nuances that I'm not going to be able to cover up here. I have the books that explain all of them, have stories from the teachers themselves. They're out in the hall. And if I do accept credit cards, so if it's something that you didn't bring cash today, that is something that I can do because of Square, if you're familiar with it. It's kind of cool. So practice number 1. Teachers who call the shots share purpose, which always focuses on students as individuals, and they use this as the basis of decisions aimed at school improvement. So shared purpose, that consists of mission, vision, values, and goals. Teachers who call the shots, they get to create the shared purpose in their school. And they say, you know what, Kim? We create shared purposes that are strikingly similar to all the schools across the nation. We say we're interested in the whole child. We say we're interested in educating individuals. The difference is that we are able to make that shared purpose live in the school. In other schools where we've worked, we knew where things weren't living up to the shared purpose, but we didn't really sense it was in our authority to do anything about it. So that's something that's different that they're able to do every teachers in every school might say they share purpose. This is what shared purpose means to this group of teachers. Practice number 2. Teachers who call the shots participate in collaboration and leadership for the good of the whole school, not just a classroom. So teachers do not work in silos in these schools. They can't. They are collectively responsible and accountable for whole school success. So they want to know what everybody's doing, and they have an incentive to help everybody in the school improve, and they see it as their business what their colleagues are doing in their classrooms, if there's classrooms at all. I mean, sometimes there are not. If Jane down the hall is doing something that's really awesome and they can see that Jane's having an effect on teachers, they want to go and get that and get it all across the school. They all want to know what Jane's doing. If Jane is not doing so hot, they want to know what kind of coaching and mentoring Jane needs, because Jane impacts the whole school's success. So this is the kind of attitude that starts to come out. The teachers also collaboratively lead the whole school. Now, when I say that, please understand that I do not mean this is all teachers sitting in a circle singing Kumbaya. Because you say collectively lead the whole school, and this is the image they get in their heads. And then journalists, they will make this big thing about this is teacher-led schools versus principal-led schools. And this just happened even, Adam and his colleagues are doing great work in Rochester on this, and journalists called me and wanted to know all about this, and I'm telling her the history, and we never got to talking about leadership, and that's the story that came out, principal-led schools versus teacher-led schools. So that's not the story. These ideas aren't really reflective of what's happening here. This is a story about teachers the professionals who are closest to the students, getting to decide the kind of culture and the kind of activities that are necessary for high performance. So teachers know they can't make every single decision as a team, but they do make the shared purpose as a team. They do make the decisions about the major direction of the school as a team. If something's not going right, they get together as a team, figure out what's wrong, and then they make a shift. So the leaders are selected by the teachers, and they're in service to the teachers who are responsible for school success. And the leaders need to make the decisions in line with what the teachers have decided is the position of the school. So the leader's job is not to come in and ensure teachers' compliance to something that is happening outside the school. Okay, so that's the story. And it's not that teachers don't value a leader. They do. There are teachers who call the shots, who have hired principals, because that is a whole set of skills. You know, people are trained as principals. That's a whole set of skills that they see as valuable in the school. But the principals are now working for them. And so they're not going to hire somebody who's not working for them. And that's the distinction. There's other ways that teachers do leadership. They might have a lead teacher. They might have one or more lead teachers. They might have somebody doing administration and somebody leading the teaching. They might have a lead team. Lots of leadership structures. But that's the story.